keep your eye on this character during the show, because I'm telling you right now, their perspective is integral for the events that play out and through how we, the audience, learn about said events. How's it going, guys? Welcome back to Fraud on the Telly. In today's video, we're branching out into the world of Ice and Fire because we're going to be breaking down everything that you need to know before HBO's newest Game of Thrones prequel, House of the Dragon, based off of the George R.R. Martin book, Fire and Blood. As always, if you enjoyed the video or you learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, as we will most definitely be making content over House of the Dragon in the future. Okay, let's crack on, shall we? Our story takes place some 200-ish years before the events in a Game of Thrones, during the golden age of the Targaryens, shortly before the calamitous event in Westeros known as the Dance of the Dragons. The Dance of the Dragons was a grand civil war between the many different factions of the Targaryen family, ultimately resulting in the death of all dragons in Westeros, and most likely being the climax of our story, House of the Dragon. As we know, with Game of Thrones and anything George R. R. Martin, there's a huge, wide variety cast of characters that each play their own little intrinsic story within, well, the story. We begin with King Jaehaerys the Wise, a king who reigned for 55 years during much of the golden age of the Targaryens. Jaehaerys was responsible for creating much of how the Seven Kingdoms function in a Game of Thrones, most notably being the creation of the King's Road and the laws that govern the kingdoms. King Jaehaerys would outlive all of his children, bar one, who would become a maester, leaving a troubling problem of who would succeed him. Before the king died, Jaehaerys would set up a great council, allowing the lords of Westeros to choose their next ruler, ultimately electing Jaehaerys' grandson, Viserys Targaryen, to ascend to the Iron Throne. Viserys I would become king upon his grandfather's death, but much to the disdain of some nobles in the Seven Kingdoms. King Viserys was described as being a very amiable man, one of a cheerful disposition, greatly different from the young boy who would be named after him in a Game of Thrones. Before Viserys' ascension to the throne, he was a dragon rider who rode the famed black dragon, Balerion. But after the dragon's death, the king never bonded again with another dragon. As well, King Viserys would wield the famed Valyrian steel sword, Blackfire, like King Jaehaerys before him, which also once belonged to Aegon the Conqueror, and is typically the sword associated and wielded by the Targaryen king. I can promise you that this blade will play an integral role in House of the Dragon and the coming Dance of the Dragon, so make sure you keep your eye on it while you're watching the show. The king would have two wives, first Aemma Arryn, who would bear him a daughter, Princess Rhaenyra. The two would live a happy life together until Aemma would become pregnant once more, dying in childbirth along with their baby, Prince Baelon Targaryen. The king would marry again, this time to Alicent Hightower, the daughter of the Hand of the King at the time, Otto Hightower, an ambitious man who is considered one of the most powerful people at this time in Westeros. Alicent's marriage to King Viserys would cause whispers from within the court, as many believed that the Hightower's ambition grew too lofty. In the span of a few years, Alicent would birth 3 children, Aegon, Aemond, and Aelena. At this time, a split would begin to form between Princess Rhaenyra, who later would become Viserys' chosen heir, as Rhaenyra begins to suspect that Alicent might be undermining her ascension to the throne, but more on that later. Another integral figure and just awesome badass is Daemon Targaryen, one of the most skilled warriors in the realm, wielder of the sword Dark Sister and rider of the dragon Caraxes. Daemon was not one suited to the life in the court of King's Landing. An ambitious man, Daemon longed to be named Prince of Dragonstone, a title that is often associated with the heir of the Targaryens, but his brother would refuse. This ambition would put Daemon at odds with the Hand of the King, Otto Hightower, who viewed Daemon's ambition as an obstacle to his own and would later attempt to persuade King Viserys to name his daughter, Rhaenyra, as heir instead of his brother Daemon. Sometime later, Daemon would grow bored of King's Landing, leading to pursue his own adventures, eventually conquering a group of islands known as the Stepstones. Daemon would name himself king of the Stepstones and the Narrow Sea, but after living a few years here, he would return to King's Landing, renouncing his meager kingdom and swearing allegiance with his brother. The two would later have another falling out, as it was rumored Daemon had slept with Viserys' daughter, Rhaenyra, which is most likely true as the two would be married later on in life. These are just a few of the core Targaryens whose choices in life will ultimately lead to the Dance of the Dragons, but they are not the only important integral characters in House of the Dragon. First, we have House Valyrian, a Valyrian family like the Targaryens. At this time, House Valyrian holds the strongest navy in the world, led by the head of their family, Corlys Velaryon. His wife, Rhaenys Targaryen, will also be an important figure in our story. Known as the Queen Who Never Was, Rhaenys was consistently overlooked for the throne, eventually establishing a precedent that succession must pass through a male line. House Strong, holder of the castle Harrenhal. The Strongs are one of the most loyal families to the Targaryens, extending back to the days of Aegon's conquest. Led by Lionel Strong, a giant of a man who was mistaken by many as a brute, who was in reality an intelligent, well-learned man, as he would serve as both Master of Laws and for a short time as Hand of the King to Viserys. Lionel and his sons, however, would die in a mysterious fire in the castle of Harrenhal, further encapsulating the believed curse on said castle. There's a host of other characters who are sure to make appearances throughout House of the Dragon, but we're going to focus on just one more who I believe will be extremely integrally important to the story. Mushroom, a dwarf who served as a fool at the courts of Viserys, Aegon II, Rhaenyra, and Aegon III. Mushroom's alleged to have recorded many of the events that took place from the time of King Viserys' reign into the Dance of the Dragon and the turmoil that would rise from its ashes. Mushroom's testimony would serve as one of the main documents used in the creation of the book Fire and Blood, as the book is written from the perspective of Maester Gillidan, who lived during the time of Robert Baratheon, using Mushroom's testimony and some other sources that still survive the Dance of the Dragons to create this book. Keep your eye on this character during the show, because I'm telling you right now, their perspective is integral for the events that play out and through how we, the audience, learn about said events. Finally, it wouldn't be Game of Thrones or a show labeled House of the Dragons without exactly that. Some freaking dragons. We're told there's going to be at least 17 of these dragons that appear throughout House of the Dragon, so we're going to run through a few of the more famous ones. First, Balerion the Black Dread, mentioned already, a great massive black dragon ridden by Aegon the Conqueror and used to bring Westeros under his control. King Viserys would be the last to ride Balerion, as the dragon would die of old age in 94 AC. The massive skull of the dragon still residing in King's Landing today. Syrax, a yellow female dragon ridden by Rhaenyra Targaryen. Caraxes, known as the Blood Worm, a huge, fierce red dragon ridden by the warrior Daemon Targaryen. Meleus, known as the Red Queen, a scarlet red dragon ridden by Rhaenys Targaryen. This dragon was once the swiftest of its kind, but has grown slow in its old age, kind of like its rider. Vermithor, the Bronze Fury, a magnificent bronze dragon that was ridden by King Jaehaerys until his death. Finally, Vhagar, ridden by Queen Visenya in Aegon's conquest. Vhagar is the oldest, largest, and fiercest dragon in Westeros after the death of Balerion. This dragon would be ridden by Laena Velaryon, the eldest daughter of Corlys Velaryon and Princess Rhaenys Targaryen. Without going into too many details and potential spoilers, as we know that House of the Dragon is taking much of its work from the book Fire and Blood, so we can already assume a lot of stuff that's going to be taken into account. We're just going to leave the video here. This is, in my opinion, all of the things that you need to know to have a greater understanding when going into House of the Dragon, as Game of Thrones is super complicated, has an ass ton of characters, and we're bound to be confused. The list I've given you here is not all of the most important characters, but definitely ones that you should keep your eyes on and know the interaction and history between, so you can better understand the story as it unfolds. I'm pretty excited and have high hopes for this show. The Dance of the Dragons is one of the most interesting times in Game of Thrones lore, and surely it won't be as bad as the end of a Game of Thrones. Fingers freaking crossed. As always, guys, if you enjoyed the video or learned something new, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Go check out some of our other videos, but we will definitely be doing House of the Dragon content in the future, whether it's episode breakdowns or theory videos, so keep your eyes out for that. As always, guys, thank you for supporting me in these videos. It really does mean a lot. As always, stay safe out there. I hope to see you in the next one. Peace, love, adieu.